Now, what are your kids or grandkids up to today? Are they playing out with their mates or are they on their iPads? Shocking new research has shown that kids are more likely to own a phone than be able to throw a ball. And half of children are getting less than an hour's physical activity a day. So do we need to start encouraging kids to play out more? I feel, Katie, we've been having this discussion forever, but obviously in the current climate, with our obsession with phones, it's got a particular kind of edge to it, hasn't it?
I mean, it kind of surprised me because it feels like one or the other. I'd say my kids are a bit of both. They use devices, but they're always out in the front garden, back garden. We lock them in the garden with the dog when they get too loud. So they're still very active and they're doing, like, what you would consider old-fashioned play, where they're playing in the mud, they're doing imaginary games, they're on their bikes. But
is that hard work to get them to do that? I mean,
no,
do you... No?
They're desperate to do that. And they're sporty through the school. They've got lots of hobbies and sport that we'll ferry them round to and after-school clubs. So they're outdoors enough, but I'm also happy for them to have technology, to have phones. Like, that is part of our world. And you just got to parent them. That's just part of our job. You know?
See, you're making it sound quite easy within your family, but clearly there is a concern that we've got a lot of kids who are not getting the level of physical activity.
I mean, Katie, as she said, she lives out in the country, she's got a garden, and I guess you can let your kids out there and not worry about their whereabouts. But if you're kind of more in a city and you don't have any outside space, it's a lot harder, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because then you're kind of like back to the days of, like, I grew up on a council estate, but we would just disappear all day, me and the kids, for the weekend.
Yeah.
Off into the woods, the garage, behind the garages. My mum didn't bat an eyelid. That wouldn't happen now.
No.
We would
all be too worried, wouldn't we, to let our kids out of our sight for a whole day.
Yeah, and I mean, I know, Myleene, you've got real concerns about it, but I wonder if we're too quick to demonise screens in this and not look more broadly at what our lives are now. I mean, like, my mum would sort of chuck us out because she didn't want us under her feet, as the expression would be. There was nothing to do in the house. There was no telly. It was boring. You wanted to go out as kids. And
was television not invented when you were a child?
Well, there wasn't telly during the day. So in the summer holidays, you could sit and look at the telly if you like, but it wouldn't be very exciting. It would be the test card. Whereas now we just lead different lives. You've usually got two parents working, or it's a single parent. There's not as much green space, as you say, Jane. And so, you know, for people just to live their lives, the screen does become a sort of default setting, doesn't it?
I think it's a tricky one because you say, you know, we were released out into the wild, and I do think that's where creativity does come from, because necessity is the mother of invention.
Yeah.
So that is where that sort of development comes from. But I think my struggle with all of this is, and I've got, you know, a 19-year-old, I've got a 15-year-old, and I've got a 6-year-old.
Wow.
So right across, and the range there. But I think for me it's the contradiction that I struggle with the most. So you have schools who want phones to be banned, correct, but then they hand them devices, which, you're right, we're preparing them for a world of tech. They are going to be digital natives if they're not already. However, if you're setting homework on iPads, they're back on their screens again. And let's not fool ourselves into thinking that you take a phone off a kid, they can't set up the other device, a secondary device, to action what they want to see on it. I find myself going into restaurants and I say to the kids that we call it phone hygiene. Yeah. Nobody's allowed their phone at the table.
I think that's good.
But everyone's fine with that until you walk into the restaurant and then someone else has got their kid watching the iPad, and then you feel like the bad mum because all your kids are, like, looking over, and of course they're going to look. They're inquisitive. And then you've got the menu. You get to the restaurant and they're like, here's the QR code, you can look at the menu on here. So there's phones back out at the table again, and I just think that's what I struggle with.
So how strict are you then on it? What kind of rules?
I mean, it depends who you ask, because I think I'm fair, and I feel like I'm always
firm
fighting.
But fair.
Well, I think I'm fair. I think I give them enough time and understand that they have a need to understand how to edit and how to have communication with their friends and not feel left out and do their homework. But my kids will say I'm not fair because everyone else's mum is really cool and lets them have the phone. And when my kids do have sleepovers, I come around with phone jail. And I'll go, right, come on, girls, it's midnight, hand your phones in, your mums all, they've all agreed.
That's clever.
But I don't want to lock the kids in a room where everyone, the world has got access to them when I go to bed. So I'm like, phones, hand them in. No phones in the room.
God, I'm grateful I'm not parenting at this stage.
It's
I have to
hard.
say. So having said that, I mean, I've got a 19-year-old and a 23-year-old, and I think they've kind of worked through it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I mean, neither of them are particularly obsessed with
Maybe
their
they
phones.
just missed it. And
Maybe.
I feel like for us, it's not our
We're
job
in
to be
it.
their friend. It's our job to be their mums and to give them a boundary. And my daughter would say the same about me, that she thinks I'm strict. And she'll always tell me someone else has got something further.
Our daughters, I'd love to hear
I
them
think
in
it's
a room.
never been harder than it is now.
I agree.
I
To
mean,
parent.
with phones, because they just do so much and they're so much a part of everybody's lives now. And my 33-year-old had a Nokia brick with a little snake
3310.
game.
Love
You know,
it.
And
was
that is
it.
just a phone,
So
that's
she's
not-
totally sort of passed her by. My 22-year-old, again, she was sort of on... I mean, there were smartphones, but they weren't anything like they are now.
Yeah.
At that very important age of around 10, 11, 12. And I don't know what I would do now. I think I'd have to be you. I'd be doing phone jail all over the
But
place.
it's so tricky because, like I said, it's that dichotomy. It's the contradiction where schools are evangelical about we don't allow any of these devices in, but then you set so much homework and reports and communication. It's all on these secondary devices. So I think
it
the
keeps
messaging
evolving,
is
'cause I'll change what
mixed.
I do every term, you know, and things are changing with my eldest Belle all the time.
You know what they don't get? They don't get bad shoulders like we did. Carrying our books backwards and
I know.
forwards.
Look, the
every day.
messaging is phones aren't... The reason I say to the kids is phones aren't bad. The reason is they're so good.
Yeah.
It's hard to
Yes.
tear yourself away from the addiction of the phone, and
Though-
adults could learn a lot from it too.
But you remind when you were saying phone jail, you know, having a sleepover, you say, hand in your phones. And I mean, this is me back to dark ages, Jane. Thanks for reminding everyone. But I mean, my mum used to come upstairs and take my torch away from me because I was reading a book under
Take
my
away
cupboard.
my quill
Yes, take away my quill.
and my ink
Absolutely.
pot.
Well, my daughter points out that, Granddad's back online, so the boomers are just as bad. I think they should have their phones removed too.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. My kids think I'm terrible. They're forever telling me to get off my phone.